And so now Philip is going to kind of take you on a deeper dive into Windows Azure mobile services. Take it away, Philip.
All right. See if that works right. Okay. All right. So Bryan talked about Azure in the portal. So I'm going to go over the actual mobile services portion a little bit in more detail. It's later than I thought it would be when I started, so hopefully I will not keep you guys here too late. So this is what I'm going to go over. I'm going to be in the portal a lot, in the mobile services section specifically. And we're going to create a project. And we're going to work in it and do a lot of stuff with it. I'm going to talk about the data, what it uses to push notifications. We're going to do some authentication, and then I did have something. Trust me, it was really cool and awesome for scheduler, but Twitter decided to change their API, so that got scrapped. And then talk a little bit about the diagnostics and scale. So just what is mobile services? What Microsoft has done is really cool. Basically, they've created this basically a one-stop shop for your backend, for your mobile apps. They have, and it's very open, and they have the SDKs for the Windows Store, iOS, Windows Phone, Android, HTML. So you're not held to a specific format. And basically the way it works is for your data, out of the box you have, and I'm going to call it Azure SQL, just because that's what I'm used to as well. That's the default. You do have the capabilities to go in and change it, and you can use the table and blob storage, but that's not by default. The authentication out of the box, you have those for Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, and Google. I'm going to hook up one of those. I'm going to do Twitter. And then you have the push notifications for all four, the WNS for the Windows Store, the WPNS for the phone, Apple, and Google. And lastly, the server-side scripts and the scheduler. I'm going to show those. One thing about mobile services, you're going to want to do a lot of stuff on the server side in the scripts, where typically you may be thinking do it on the client side. And I'll explain that a little bit more and give you my reasons why I think you really need to do more of it on the server side. So just real quick, what's supported is very open. You got your Windows, iOS, Windows Phone, Android, HTML. So you can have all of these, a website hitting it. You can have a single mobile services project that we're going to go create. And you can have apps in all of these platforms point and hit that same mobile services, that same data. So what we're going to do is, let's go up to the portal. And I'm going into, this is mine through what we got through the MSDN. This is just mine here, so I'm going to go into the mobile services. And we're just going to create one, and it's really easy. Right now it's in preview. So, does anybody have what do you want to call it? Anybody?
What are we going to do? What are we doing?
Name of it, what do you want to call it?
SOLTIS Demo 1?
Come on. SOLTIS Demo 1. All right. Let's see if it works. Hey, you haven't been in here. All right, so for the database, you've got three options. They've just come out with this free 20 meg database. So you don't have to pay for the database if you choose that option. You can only use it once. You can only use it for yeah. Because you can have up to 10 mobile service projects per account, but you can only use that free database for one of those, the way it works. Create a new one, or you can use an existing. And the way that works with the existing is kind of, if you want to use it for a cost-saving measure, behind the scenes what it does is, typically if you think of it, the SQL database, your default schema is DBO. What it does is, in our case, it's going to be SOLTIS Demo 1 dot whatever the tables are. If we want to share it and we create a different one and it's SOLTIS Demo 2, and we tie it to the same database, that's what the schema, it'll be usually demo2 dot whatever our tables are. And the two services won't see the other one, and it's handled properly. So we'll just create a new one. East US. Right now it's only these 4 because it's in preview. Once it comes out, they'll expand it to all of the data centers. There's our database. And you can choose existing servers, and we'll just, why not run an I'll use one. I'll use this one. I know that password. And we're done. So what it's doing right now, it's going and it's provisioning everything, creating the database, setting up our mobile services site here. It's usually pretty quick. I mean, it takes about 60 seconds maybe to do all this. And once it's ready, we can go in there. Maybe it's taking a little longer. There we go. All right, so now we're in our mobile services site here. Across the top, you have these different tabs. We're going to be in quite a few of those, so I won't focus on those right now. But right now, we're in this little quick start tab, and you can choose which platform you want to start with. So I'm going to focus on Windows Store. If you can connect, if you have an app already and you want to use mobile services as your backend, it's very easy to tie this into it, and that's what this existing, you can come through here and it tells you exactly what to add to your project. But I'm just going to do the create new. We want to create this table for what it's doing is going to our database and it's going to create this to-do item for this project that we're going to download. You just pick your which language you want, and then we're going to go save it. And I'll save it right there. There it goes. Now let's unzip this thing. All right. And here we go. So what that did, that built us this little project. There's just a couple quick things I want to point out. In the app XAML, this right here is what's telling the app where to go. What's the project? So that's that SOLTIS Demo 1, and right below it, that's the key. If we come in here to this manage keys, everything, blob storage, anything, you have all these application keys. This is taking a lot longer. There it goes. So that's that key. That's that second part of this piece of information, telling this app what the mobile services, what mobile service project to connect to. The other thing I want to point out, when it downloads, you'll see all of these references. That's why a lot of this stuff it won't build. It comes with this NuGet package, and you have to build it first. As soon as you build it,
Can you do it up a little bit?
is it, or can you not see it? There we go. There we go. All right. So once you build it, it comes with that NuGet package, and it goes and it grabs all those references and pulls it back down for you. Now it's all fine. So I'm just going to run this now. I haven't done any code. I'm just going to run it, and this is what it gives you going through the demo. And we can just start adding items. And what it's doing, it's inserting those up to our table, that to-do table. It's hitting refresh, which is going and getting, and it's reading those records back. And it's that quick to set up a project and get going. Where did my desktop go? There it is.
Did it have to refresh to get that, or was that like a push notification?
With the other one,
The one on the right hand side.
where that was a read.
Okay.
That was a read that went. It wasn't a push notification. So if we go into our to-do item that we created at the very beginning, there's our record, test 1, 2, 3. That easy. Is that cool? Y'all wait?
Ooh.
Yeah. All right. So.
That's pretty quick. That almost beat almost 20 seconds there.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
Okay. So this, the data. So like I said, you've got the structured storage with the SQL database in Azure. I talked about the partition schema. If you point two of them to the same database, that's how it handles it. It takes care of that for you behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about it. That's all managed for you. As far as getting to the data, because it is the Azure database, you can get to it in multiple ways, through Management Studio, through the portal, REST API. There's multiple ways to get to it and manage your data. So it's very, very easy to get to. For the server scripts, I mentioned before, you want to do a lot of things on the with the server scripts on the server side, rather than on the client side. And the reason why I say this is you can have all these multiple platforms pointed to the same service, same mobile service. So if you're validating some data, making sure it's a valid number, and you're doing it on the client side, you're taking advantage of everything. You have Windows Store, Windows Phone, iOS, Android, and you're doing this on the client side. You got to update all those apps, resubmit them, get the user to update it. Using the server-side scripts, you have one place, a central location. And with the server-side scripts, you change it, you save it, and it's live. There's no deploying anything. There's no, making sure the user got the update, making sure you're passing the whatever test they're going to do. It's live, and you control that, and it's much easier. And for on this side, the one thing I want to point out, the dynamic schema, by default, that's turned on. And I'll give you an example of that when we get in there. What that does is when you have a table, and in code, if we're making a call for a column that's not there, it will dynamically go at it for us. We don't have to maintain, as we're developing, we don't have to make sure that we're also maintaining the database and all the fields that we need. It'll maintain that for you. You do want to turn that off after it's developed and deployed, because with it being on, if somebody's trying to attack you, you want to make sure that's off, so that they don't mess with with your stuff. Also with the server-side scripts, you can do a lot of things in intercept the CRUD operations, and just do a lot of checks, do a lot of any management you want to do as well. And you also can do a lot of querying. You don't have to write any T-SQL unless you want to. You don't have to write any SQL scripts or anything like that. So let's go up there. Once you're in a table, there's different tabs here. We'll just go to the script tab. And these are the different operations we have right here with the insert, update, delete, read. And that's where when I inserted that data, we did the insert call, and then we turned around and did a read call. It just pulled all the data back based off the criteria. Before I go further, if you're in here, they have down here, the help button is really cool. They got a lot of cool features in here. I don't know. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all have to tell me. Mine's big, so I can see it. But if you click on that, there's a lot of good samples in here, and the code on how to do it, validating the data. There's a lot of samples in here on how to do this stuff. So the help is actually very helpful. So what I'm going to do here, I want to cheat, because this is.
Hey Phil, can I ask a question?
Yes.
The application you created earlier,
Mm-hmm.
was a basic question. Are you creating web applications, or are these mobile applications that you go to a store?
The one that I did is
Yeah.
a Windows Store application.
Okay.
This was one that you could, if you wanted to, submit it to the store. In a Windows 8 machine, you could go to the store and find it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what we've got on the insert, just a couple of things here. The item is what we're passing up, so that's that text that we're passing. We're passing up. The user is the information about the user, which right now we're not going to use, but once I do some authentication, we'll return to that. And the request just is what we want to do. So what I'm going to do is cheat so I don't type anything wrong, because your scripts are in JavaScript, and I'm not very good at JavaScript, and I'm not very good at typing. So to make sure this goes a little smoother, so all we're doing is on the insert, we're going to check the item that we're passing in, make sure the length, if it's less than 5, we're going to return back a bad request, and basically an error, and we're going to pass back this notice to ourselves. If it's 5 or greater, then hey, it passes, and we're just going to insert it. So all you have to do is save it, and we're in there. So without doing anything else, we'll just run it again. And if I go 5, that should pass, and it should be inserted. But if I go 4, now when we hit that, it should fail. And what we get is text is too short, whatever message we send. And you don't want to do it this way. You want to do a try catch. You just don't let the thing bomb. But that's how you do the validation on the server side with the script. And like I said, it's much easier to maintain it in one place versus trying to maintain all your apps for all your different platforms. And that's pretty much the data in the server side scripts. But it's real simple just to maintain that on the server side. Now, the push notifications. All right. With push notifications, I'm going to focus on the WNS because of I got the Windows Store app. So I'm going to set that up, and we're going to do a push through the app. And basically with mobile services, and I think Bryan left, he could probably speak to this a little bit more. I know with both, I'm going to do push notifications and I'm going to do authentication. With mobile services, they've done a lot of work with this that gives you the ability to basically, they do a lot of work for you. They give you a lot of free stuff that you didn't used to. You have to do a lot of setting things up, configuration that you don't have to do anymore. I never really dealt with it before, so I can't speak to it to the exact level of what it used to be. And like I said, Bryan probably has done it before. But it's really easy to set these up. And they give you out of the box right in the portal. I'll show that to you as well. They give you all the Google, the iOS, Windows Phone, Windows Store. And like I said, it's quite simple. So we'll just go set that up. So what you want with a push notification, you have to do a couple configuration things. You have to associate your app to the store. And then you have to create a channel from your app up to our mobile services. So to associate it to the store, it's quite, let me see if I can make this. Can't make that bigger. If you right click on the project, there's a little tab, store, and you just want to say associate app with store. And you get this little wizard, and you just sign in with your store count, whatever that may be. I'll sign in with mine. Now this failed an hour ago, so hopefully this will not fail. So these are some apps that are up in my store that I can associate it to. I'm going to click on this reserve name because we'll need this window later. So I'm just going to click on this .NET Wednesday app. And then what's important is this package name and publisher ID. That's the main keys to associate your app to the store. And when we associate it, what's going to happen? We're going to get this store key added to our project. That's all there is to configure the app to the store. Now what we need to do, back in the portal, we're going to go to push for our push notifications, and you'll see the Windows at the top, and then there's the Apple and the Google right below it that you can just put in your keys. And with Apple, they have the certificate you have to use. So let me show you what I needed this page for. We need to get our client secret and our package SID or SID. So in my store, I just need to go to that app that I've got in here. And this is what failed a while ago, so we'll see what happened. Basically in here, we have our services section here for the push notifications. So we just need to go in there. And this is the part that gets a little, you just got to bear with me and go through the steps. Basically, we have an existing solution, and we just need to go get the client secrets for it. So, son of a, all right, just pretend that worked. Let me try this another way. That's what it did earlier. Let me try it a different way. I got it to work this way.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. Let me see if it'll work this way. Because if I can't get these secrets, it won't work. So let's try it again. There we go. I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know why I'm having an issue going the other way. Okay. So once I'm in here, we've already identified the app. We've already associated our app to the store. That's what this first link is. The second one is authenticating the service. And here is our client secret and the identifier. That here. I'll go back to that. And then this long thing. And it will, as you notice, I kind of copied an extra space. It'll tell you if you've got something wrong and it didn't copy right. So now that we've got our client secret and the package security ID, we can just save that. So for configuration, that's all it's required. And we're going to go add some code, but as far as the configuration to set this up, that's it. We just associate the app to the store, we go get our client secrets, and we plug them in, and that's it. So let's go add the code. And I'm gonna go right here, and again I want to cheat and copy all my code. And then I'm on the app XAML I think it's on the unlaunched is where I'm at. So when it launches is when I'm going to check what I'm about to add, and I'll explain what all this does, this different code. So we'll clean this up. So the await, I'm getting an error there because it's not an asynchronous. Call, so that'll fix that. And just real quick, has anybody read about the async and await? Is anybody familiar with that?
It's like the task-based pattern for.
I mean, that's the new. I mean, everybody's familiar with. You need to use that. That's what with Windows 8 and RT. What they basically that's throughout the entire thing. And that's what they've done is with Windows 8, their main focus was user experience. And I've heard this number a couple of times. I don't know if it's true or not. From some of the sessions I sat on, was when they redesigned Windows 8, if it took longer than 50 milliseconds for something to run, they use this. And basically, it's to keep the screen from locking up. So I mean, everybody's experienced Outlook or some other thing just locking up and you can't do anything. That's what this is made for. I know that's like that doesn't give it justice for how it, all the things you should use it for, but
You just have to like program a lot of callbacks or write callbacks and things like that. Now it's just like written into the language.
yeah, now it's built in. You don't have to do any of that stuff. So let me clean up this stuff here. So what we're doing, I mentioned earlier we got to get a channel from our app back up to our mobile services. So that's what this guy is. It's the Windows networking, and we have this humongous thing here that's going to create that channel for us and bring it back. And what we're doing here is you could use just what's brought back, just that channel object, but it has a lot of extra stuff you don't need to deal with. So that's why I'm creating this guy here with just the 3 items that I need. And what I'm doing, this channel here, I'm just creating this this class here. Drop it right here just so it's on the same. With just these 3 fields. The ID, basically we're going to create a channel table up in our mobile services project. Every table you create has an ID field by default. So that's our ID here. The URI is what we're pulling back from this channel that we're requesting here. It's the channel URI. And then we have this expire field because channels expire after a certain time. I think they're good for 1 month. So we set that field in there. And what I'm doing here, when the app launches, I'm checking for this ID. I made it a nullable integer. So if it's null, I'm going to insert this information up to my channel table in mobile services. And then I'm going to grab that ID that was automatically created and store it to local settings. So on the first time it creates that record. The second time I check, and if I see I've got in local services, I see I got an ID, I'll just go update it. And that's mainly to update that field right there so that we continuously have this channel available to us. And if we don't do that, if you just create the record and don't update that field, once you're past that expiry date, it won't work anymore. And I think it's a month is what it's set for. And that is all the code in the app we need to do a push notification.
Then it just raises an event. How does it then? So you set it up. How does it then raise an event for you to, oh, you got mail or something, or change a number?
That's what I'm going to do on the. I'm going to change the script to push it out.
Okay.
That's going to be handled up in the mobile services in the script. All this does is just set up the channel to allow the mobile service to send it back to us, and that's all we're doing here. So up here, there we go. We're going to go back to data. So the first thing we need to do, we need to create that channel table because it doesn't exist yet. So we'll just create that.
You got this one, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. See, I told you that's why I copied all my code.
Yeah.
Because I can't type. So we're just going to create that channel because with the dynamic schema on, it can handle fields and columns we don't have that we're asking for, but it cannot create a table. You've got to, that's the only part you have to maintain. So that's what I'll show you now. If we look at the columns, right now it's just the ID field because that's by default, it always creates an ID field. But if you remember, I had those other 2 fields, the URI and the expire date. But I'm not going to add them. I'm going to let the dynamic schema take care of that for me. So what I'm going to do is go back to our to-do item in our script. For the insert, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to change it to this one. And this is what's going to do our push for us. So the top part is where we're performing the insert, and if it's successful, then we're going to respond with this send notification function down here, and we're going to pass the item through. And this is where the push notification is being generated and sent from. So what we're doing here, I'm going to look at that channel table, I'm going to get that and read that table. And what it'll do is it'll return an array of the records in that table. So I'm going to just scroll over each of those. So we could have multiple channels in there and send out multiple pushes based off how many channels are out there. And we're going to use that channel with that URI and that information to create our push. Now we're using a WNS. This would be different for the phone or Android or whatever. You can create these for all your different apps, but I'm just focused on the WNS right here. And we're going to send through this guy right here. This is a template, and while I'm here, under documentation, make sure I go to the right. Mobile. There we go. Developer Center. If you go to mobile, this is the mobile services section. This reference has a lot of good information. And what we want to do under this REST API, that's what we're using. I think it's where are we at? View server-side scripts. We're using the WNS push. So if you go in here, here's all the templates, and what we're doing, those are for the tiles, and the push notifications are down here. So I think I'm using this one. If you click on it, this will tell you what it's expecting. So the one we're doing, we're going to pass an image and then 2 different individual texts. Is all I'm doing with that one. So that's the image. What this is, I've got a storage account, a blob storage account. It's got all my family pictures on it. So what I did is I grabbed one and shrunk it down, but I'm pulling this from my storage account. For the first text, we're passing whatever I entered in that text box that we're inserting, and then just whatever extra text you want to add to it. And that is all there is to it. So now, if we run this, and hopefully this works. This is really slow. Let's do this. Now when we insert it, once it's successful, it pushes back. That's the image. That's that little image of Tucker playing soccer. The text that we put in at the top, and then there's our other text that we can add and send back. And that's all it takes to do push notifications. Like I said, I think Bryan would probably be able to speak more of all that had to be done before, where now you just configure your app, a little bit of code, and it handles everything behind the scenes. So it's really cool, or I think it's really cool. I don't know. So that's push notifications. For authentication, authentication is important, especially if you're making an app and it's going to store people's information, whatever. Say it's this one, it's a to-do list. Right now, the way it's set up, I'm not filtering this. I see everything I put in there, and if we come from somewhere else, they're going to see everything that's in there. So out of the box, you have authentication for these providers: the Microsoft, Twitter, Facebook, and Google. So I'm going to set it up for Twitter because it's pretty easy. Now for the table level permissions, I'll show you this. Right now, it's that everyone is everyone. You don't have to have any type of credentials to get into it and see the data. By default, it's anyone with an application key. And that's just if they have the application, they can get to the data. They don't need any additional privileges. The next level is the authenticated users, and that's what I'm going to show you. Only with the login, they can get to the data. And you can use that so they can only see their data. And then only scripts and admins, that's even a higher level, so that only certain levels of security can get to it. And also on the server-side scripts, you can have a real granular control. So you can give users certain levels of permissions to admin, authenticated, anonymous, and you can check the user's privilege to see what data they can get to. And by the user ID, make it so that only specific user IDs can get to it. So to do the authentication through Twitter, what we're going to do, I'm going to go to dev.twitter. And there's nothing special about this. If you have a Twitter account, you get a dev.twitter. It's not a big deal. Just go into My Applications, and we're just going to create a new application. And let's call it SOLTIS Demo 1. This stuff really doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is this callback URL, because it needs to know what this is trying to authenticate against. And what that is, if we go to our dashboard, that's the specific URL to our mobile services site here. That. And this one doesn't matter either. I'll just copy it in there. Make sure you read all that. And here comes. I actually have to type something now.
Dude, I saw one of those that have like calculus symbols on it. So
It usually takes me a time or two. I think that may be it. I think that's the first time I did it. I made it through the first try. Okay, so once you've created it, again, we have our consumer key and our secret. It's similar to what we did with the push notifications. It's just our secrets. So we just want to go back to the portal. And for identity, and this is what Bryan kind of briefly talked about it. So we've got the Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, Google. So we just need to plug that information in here. So if I take this and I need the consumer key, and then the secret. There. Let's save it. And now we're configured for authentication against Twitter. That's the configuration. Now what we need to do is go back to our data, to our table. Remember I mentioned the permissions? By default, we have this everybody with application key. So we just want to change that to authenticated users. So now it matters. Actually, I want to, dang it. Yeah, that works. Never mind. So make sure I didn't get ahead of myself. So if we go back and we run this now, without making any code changes, there we go. It's forever slow. We get an error. Let me see if it. There we go. Because we're unauthorized. Because now we have to be authenticated. So what we want to do is I want to put this. Try to remember where I put this. Maybe I'll put a note. Make sure I didn't put it in the right place. Yeah, I put a note so I wouldn't forget. Alright, so on the main page, there we go. On Navigated to, see I was there. We need to put this one line of code and make that. right here. So what we're doing, we're hitting our mobile services, and we're the authentication provider. We're saying Twitter because that's what we set up. Because it's built in, you can choose if you're doing Facebook or Google. You just change it right there for those. You can also put it in here. You can authenticate against all of these and let the user choose when the app loads. They can choose their provider. You're not tied to it. You only have to pick one. You can choose. So now, when it comes in here, you'll notice a different screen connected to a service. I didn't create this screen. You get it for free. You get this typical. You always see this whenever you got something that wants to authenticate to Twitter. So it's a familiar screen, and it's telling us that's our app that's wanting to authenticate. So now, my password. Yeah. So now we're in. We see the data. We can post. We can save it. We still have our push notification, and all is good. That's authentication through Twitter. But we want to take it one more step because I still see everybody's data. There's no filtering to just show my data. So what we want to do there, and this is through, we're going to do this through the portal in the script. And what we're going to do is right here, and I was going to be brave and type it, but I'm going to skip that. We're going to add this one line of code, and what it's going to do on the item table, we don't have the user ID field yet, but it's going to create it, and we're going to take this user object and pass in the user ID based off our authentication, and we're going to include that when we save our data. So now when somebody saves data, it's going to be associated just to that user. The other thing we got to do, save that. I hit save. Save. We want to change the read. And again, it's a simple line of code.
I get the lines of code. Is there like
I mean, I get a lot of it from the help. Yeah, like the validate, that's where I got a lot of this. I mean, that's, if it was bad, there's where I got the bad request. That's where I got most of it from.
Okay, so it is.
Yeah, it's super easy in here. The authorized user, that's where I got the user ID. I'm just calling it user ID instead of owner. That doesn't matter, it's just a field in the table. And the same thing down here in the get function is where I got it. It's the wording. I'm using a little bit different wording, but it's all in the help. So all I'm doing here is I'm saying I'm adding to my query a where clause, and where that user ID is what the logged in user is, and that's all. So we can go back and run it again. Now this time, I gotta log in again. You can do caching so that the second time they come in, it remembers their credentials. They don't have to log in again. But that's more involved. So I'm not doing that. All right, let's try to type it right. There we go. So now when I come in here, I don't see any more data because I'm a logged in user. I have a specific user ID, and none of those records had that data. Actually, before I do this, I said I was going to do this and I forgot. On our channel table, if you remember we had just an ID field, it went and created our URI and our expired field for us. On the to-do item, when I ran it this time, I haven't ran it. It'll create that user ID field for us. So let's come back in here and type something. Now when we save this, it's specific for me. So if I come back in here, back out, go back to the table. Now we see the user ID field. That record I just entered with my specific user ID handed to me by Twitter. And that's all you got to do authentication. And to be able, so you don't have to handle a mechanism to handle logins and user IDs and passwords and all this stuff. You can authenticate through the live account, Google, let them manage it. And you just accept what they give you, the IDs that they give you.
Can you use multiple
Login,
or
yeah, that's what you can do.
Same.
Yeah, out of the box you have those 4. There are, I think it's called either Auth0 or Zero Auth. There's a company, I said it on a session at TechEd. It's somebody who used to work at Microsoft. They left and co-founded a company, and what they do is handle all of the out of the box, non-out of the box authentications. So they did AD, they did, I'm trying to think all the ones they did. I mean, they have a slew of them if you use their service to give you that same capability. And you can set it up so they, the user chooses between, if you use all 4 out of the box and then go use somebody else and set up, 4 more, you set it up so they can choose which of those 8, because I'm probably the only person on the face of the planet who doesn't have a Facebook account. So it's the only, I got 2. So if we only use Facebook, then somebody might not be able to use it. So yeah, you can set up multiple for, to get the most options.
you just have to go in your script and where it's
yeah, you just got to make
Twitter,
it more complex and, look for Twitter, look for, Facebook, Google, all the different ones. But yes, you can do that. And that is authentication. That's all there is to it. And again, this is one of those that specifically this guy here is doing a bunch of work for you. Where I talked to a guy at TechEd who is really he's the evangelist on mobile services. And I was talking about this, and he said before this, to set this up, he said it took him 3 days to figure it out. And then it took him a week to really understand it. He said, I can do it now in minutes because they're doing everything for me. You don't have to do anything. You have to do those, set it up, put those keys in, call it, and it manages everything behind the scenes. So they've done a lot of work to take the load off of us and kind of standardize it. All right. Now, let's see, that's authentication. The scheduler. All right, this was going to be my awesome demo that Twitter decided I didn't need to do tonight. Basically, I was going to hit Twitter through their search.twitter. I mean, just a quick, simple, just a URL to grab some and then do tile. I was going to do tile updates. But there's a built-in schedule that you can create these schedules, minutes, hours, days, months. You set up the time, or you can do it on demand whenever you desire, if there's not a specific schedule that you want to follow. And there's some examples. You can purge old data, you can go clean up stuff, you can go set to do push notifications at a certain time. But there's just a lot of reasons why you might want to do a schedule. So I'll just show you where that's at. There's a scheduler tab. Basically, it's simple. You just come in here and you create a schedule. We'll just give it a name, job 1. This is where you choose. 15 minutes is the shortest increment you can set these up for. But you can just choose days, months, whatever. You can set it to start at a certain time. And then it creates it. On creation, the status is disabled. So it's not, if you set on 15 minutes, it's not firing in the background while you're working on it. So it's when you first create it, it's disabled. If you go in here, again, you can configure it. You can change it if you decide later you don't want to do it that often. You just want to run it once a day. So you can change that on the fly. The script is where the work is happening. Again, it's JavaScript. I'll just run it. We'll just run it once. And all this is doing is writing to the log, just text. You're running an empty schedule job. So that's all the scheduler is. Like I said, mine was going to be really cool and awesome. But I say that.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what it did over here in the logs, it just wrote that. See if it'll load.
It's cheesy, but it is pretty amazing how much they just
Yeah, they take care of a lot of stuff. So there's our warning that we wrote, and it put it in the logs. So that's what the scheduler is. I mean, it's really cool to do maintenance stuff behind the scenes on a routine. So the last section, I think this is the last section to talk about. The diagnostics, I'll just kind of keep it this way. The diagnostics is that pretty much every service in Azure has this dashboard, where you have this diagnostics chart. You can see what's going on. This is where we've been hitting it the last little bit. You can see how much of whatever you're paying for, how much, the percentages, where you stand, where you can change things. So that's the diagnostics. It's pretty straightforward. The logging, that's what we did with that schedule. You can do this console.error log warn, whatever, based off of, say in our scripts, we want to check it. If it's successful, the insert, don't worry about it. Else, you want to log what happened, what's going on. And that's over in that logs tab. That's where it writes that to. The scale, to scale this, Bryan demonstrated it. It's the same thing on this. It's very easy just to scale up how many instances you want this on. The same thing with storage, because you're using, out of the box, you're using the SQL storage, the Azure SQL storage, whatever they want to call it now. So it scales up automatically. It's very easy. So again, that's the scale tab inside the portal. And it's this one. Come on.
You just scale up their control now.
Seriously, come on. What's going on? Let's go back. See if it'll load now. There we go. So out of the box, you get the free one, but with the free one, you're tied down to just one instance. You can go into reserve mode and tell them, yes, I know I'm going to spend more money. And you can scale up to 10 instances. And it's very quick. Again, it will scale up faster than it took to create from the very beginning. I think it takes about 30 seconds to scale up. I saw somebody do it up to 5 instances, and it took about 30 seconds, and you're scaled out. The database is down here. Again, we can scale this up. With the web, you have that 1 and 5 gig option, but if you need bigger, you can go to the business side, and you have a bigger option there. I will discard it. Let's see, what did I not configure? This is where I mentioned before the dynamic schema. You just come in here and you just turn it off, so it will stop handling that for you. That's where that's located at. I talked about the logs. That's where we can trap errors and send that in. That's it. We'll talk about that. Just showed that. I pulled this the other night. This is just the pricing of what it costs to do this. You've got the free option with limitations. You can have 10 of them, but you've got I need to click that. But you're on a shared environment. You don't have. If you want it free, you can't. You're going to share it with other people. You got no option. The biggest limitation is on that schedule job. You can only create one. I mean, 700 executions a month's pretty good, but I mean that's once an hour, I think. I mean that's a lot, but you can only create one job. And then the database is just a normal database pricing. With the paid, you can create up to 10 jobs, so you get that option. It's not very expensive to go to the reserve. It's $8 an hour per instance, so I mean it's not super expensive. And the database is the database, the normal database cost. So this is just a summary, because we talked about the data. I showed you the server scripts. We did the authentication through Twitter. We did the push notifications. I would have shown you better the scheduler. And then there's the logging, the diagnostic screen, and how you can just scale it really easy. That's it. You can go to Twitter. You can go to Azure. Pretty much everybody's got the MSDN subscription in here, but you can go there. There's tons of great samples, tutorials on there. If you go to that mobile section, into the references. And that is it. Somebody got a question?
You showed the push notifications for the Windows Store app. Can I use Azure Mobile Services to do push notifications in, say, like my web app running in cloud services?
Yeah, if you connect it, you can take a web application as long as you connect it back. You've got to connect it back to the mobile services through that information. It's on here, telling it where to go and set those channels up. You can do that. You should be able to do that because you can hit the website. You can make a website hit it and do that.
Sweet.
So, yeah. Anything else? Anybody? Come on, nothing.
Hey,
All
I
right.
really appreciate
Anybody?
everybody. Sorry, I'm gonna take over a little bit more. I usually don't for the user group. This is a community group, but I really appreciate we got so many people from Villagers here. Really, thank you, Philip, for speaking. For taking some time to set these up and whatnot. Hopefully, you guys find this valuable. Bryan is really trying to change up how he's doing the user group, trying to get feedback from you guys. So, his topic, Bryan's topic today was broad and wide on a lot of different things, giving you guys an overview. And if that's helpful, great. But if you guys need him to dive deeper into something that's going to help you on your daily work, give him that feedback. I mean, we have one bit wizard here today, and typically we dominate the meeting. I wanted to keep it separate, but the truth is, BitWizards funds this. We have the most attendance, and so I have no problem with keeping it conceptual in .NET and using BitWizards specific items so that that you guys get real direct help and training out of this. So Bryan has it up on the website to do the surveys to pick the topics, but also suggest to him, or if you guys, 5 of you get together talking about a topic and you say, we should really cover this. That was great about Azure, but man, that was too much. It was like too much broad. I need to go depth into the CDN or, SQL Azure. I really need to know to deploy. And we can set up users group meetings where everybody basically sits at their desk with a link and do some hands-on stuff if we need to. We can figure it out, that kind of thing. So provide that feedback to Bryan and Mark. Mark is VP now, I guess, of the users group to do it. And I'll get out of the way. I don't know what you guys got in mind.
Well, I mean, it's just
and by the way, Bryan,
give away some parts.